but I don't set that up. But it looks for something. See how the head floats?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. It was cheap too. I think they already stopped making it. Technology, it just changes so darn fast.
I want one of those tiny microphones that you can clip on. Be easier for everyone.
There's a microphone over here for the desk, but the room isn't really that big, so who needs it? If you did want to look at videos from last class that are actually better than the ones that I posted, you could look at the ones that I posted a couple of weeks earlier for that class, because those were from another semester that I didn't have the camera backwards. So you can do that. Oh, and I updated the syllabus. In looking over it, I noticed I did have the time correct for the final session. And our final session is a double session, so we only meet on Wednesday of finals week and not on Monday. But since I do all my tests via email, I don't have a final on the final session. So that's really our 29th and 30th sessions. So we'll still do, what we normally do in those two.
So it's just gonna be like lecture?
Yeah. Mostly covering the most contemporary folks that I can think of to keep you interested. But if you have a conflict, which often happens with people in final week, they're not mandatory any more than regular classes. So it's mandatory for me. I need to be here. I need to use all 30 meetings in order to satisfy our criteria. So what I noticed and what I had to update was I have November 22nd is a holiday because Thursday is Thanksgiving. Whether you feel like giving thanks or not, mostly I think people just like to eat, whatever you call it, right?
It's my birthday on Thanksgiving, so.
Well, congratulations. Yes.
It's my favorite because I get extra special Thanksgiving food like crab legs.
Ooh, that's pretty cool. Of course, crab legs, they're so rare here in Alaska.
Oh, so hard to find.
Then, but so we're not meeting on Wednesday of this week. This is our only class for this week because of the holiday. And I noticed after I had the correct November 22nd no class day, I had November 21st, and I had scheduled something for the 21st, and that's like, well, no, wait a minute, that can't happen. It's going backwards. So I erased the November 21st one and moved it down because all the other dates were right. Where I doubled things up was on Wittgenstein and Quine, which is easily done. Term papers I still have due on the 6th. You can actually send them even up to the very last of the semester. Please don't, though. The trouble is, of course, I have to read them all and get everything done by the following Wednesday. That's when grades are due for the semester. I have to put them in, or they yell at me. In fact, occasionally they shoot us, you know, and I don't know if you've ever seen them lining faculty up, you know, down at the quad. And the reason the bullet holes are in that one building is because that's where they usually fire up. Yeah. So finals week, we only meet on Wednesday, and notice it's an early schedule. So instead of 11:30, we meet at 10, because it's a double session, and our session's doubled up by being here an hour and a half early.
So is it just 10 to 12:45?
Yep. Okay, so that was my update on that. You can always send your papers in early. That's also, you know, that's actually a good thing for me, because then I get to read a lot early. So good for that. I forget, I don't think I opened or changed this. So today we're going to talk primarily about Nietzsche, but a couple of his other contemporaries. And then the second session that I have listed on these notes is actually next Monday, not Wednesday. And that's when we go and start looking at the American philosophers, which is pretty cool. We have some. They're really good, actually. Better than all the others, actually. In the fact that, you know, they're standing on the shoulders of all the greats, and they're looking farther. So there they are. I highly recommend this BBC presentation on Nietzsche if you get the chance. I don't know what you think, but I think videos like that are better than reading a lot of the stuff. It's within, in that case, 40 minutes or so. You get to see a lot about Nietzsche's life, where he was born. She actually sits on the step of the house where he was born and raised till he was 9, whatever, and talks about his family. Goes into the church where Nietzsche, his father was a Lutheran minister. He was en route to be a Lutheran minister himself when in college he started reading stuff about the new criticism of the Bible, which looked at it as if it were just an ordinary text, and trying to figure out who wrote it, who was the audience for it, right? You know, the kinds of questions you might ask of a regular text, as opposed to thinking that this was the divine word of God. And as you read it that way, what you discover is all kinds of difficulties. We still have quite a large corpus of work trying to study the various books of that period, who wrote them, analyses of the individuals that wrote them, especially people like Paul, St. Paul, who was very influential. Paul, the inventor of Christianity, I think I might have mentioned that book when we were talking about the Jesus to Christ video that Frontline did, and so on. And Nietzsche was in the group of people that are really getting into that study and finding a lot of difficulties with it. I also like the kinds of pages like Wikipedia that give you an awful lot about the individuals that we're looking at and place them in context. Lots of links to all sorts of resources. And Nietzsche wasn't really considered a philosopher by a lot of English and American philosophers of the time, after him. He was an interesting writer. his actual faculty was ancient languages, mostly Greek, really. And if you did have a chance to look at the genealogy of morality, you'll notice that an awful lot of what he was doing there was analyzing Greek words and maybe Latin words and trying to figure out their relationships and building his idea of where morality came from based on entomology of the language, right? Which, I mean, today, that's still very interesting, but we certainly wouldn't actually consider that to be a replacement for digging up lots of other cultural artifacts and anthropology and things of that sort. I think his analysis is apropos of his day, of his influence, and Darwin. And an important aspect of what Nietzsche is looking at, of course, is the new evolutionary theories that are developing. Charles Darwin was, and then we haven't actually talked about Darwin. We should mention Darwin too. Charles Darwin. I think everybody's familiar with him and several of his books. His trip on the ship where he spent a lot of time in the Galapagos Islands, studying the different kinds of finches and things and other like. Actually, his grandfather was already a believer of evolution. So if we think Darwin's the one that gave us this dangerous idea, well, yeah, he did, but he wasn't the only one. In fact, if you notice in Nietzsche's article, he talks about Herbert Spencer. Herbert Spencer is really the one. If you think of the theory of evolution as especially leading to the phrase "the survival of the fittest," that's actually not something that Charles Darwin ever said. It was this guy, Herbert Spencer, who was very influenced by Darwin, but then was also, he expanded on it philosophically in ways that Darwin did not. And so Herbert Spencer was an important individual. And all of them really are heavily influenced by this guy. Thomas Malthus, where we even get the expression Malthusian. Have you ever heard that? Malthusian? So Malthus calculated how many people each generation of a healthy, well-fed population would raise, and calculated that after only a couple of generations of growth of that sort, healthy growth of that sort, the population would outgrow its resources. And as a result of that, you would end up then with problems resulting in either war or some kind of disaster or some kind of infections, diseases, and things that would actually decrease the population down, and then it would start growing again. So that thesis is called Malthusian, and of course it actually works. It's kind of a biological rule, I suppose, with regard to any populations, not just the moose in Alaska, which biologists are always trying to keep tabs on how many moose there are, and you have too many moose without enough predators, right? You end up with overgrazing, and then the moose population gets weakened, and something's going to decrease the moose, in order to achieve a balance again, right? So all of that is kind of a Malthusian principle. And Malthus, by the way, was a reverend, and considered by many to be responsible for the British lack of